Hi everyone. Carter Krishnauer for Beyond the 90s. Some big news this week in the USL, which is Tony Scholes of the Premier League will be leaving the Premier League at the end of this season to join USL in their first division project. First reported by Paul Tenorio of The Athletic. And this is a pretty massive news in terms of USL trying to get the build right for the first division. It's a big hire, big swing hire. It is also not as difficult as a hire as maybe some of y'all might think it was, and I'm going to explain why. Scholes was the chief executive at Stoke City. Now, if you know about Stoke City and you know about the agency based in Stoke, the law firm slash talent agency based in Stoke that has Stoke-on-Trent that has numerous tentacles that have extended into USL, Bestwicks, you realize, oh, maybe this is why. So when Scholes was the chief executive at Stoke, he made a fatefully bad decision to sack Mark Hughes, who had led Stoke City to three top 10 finishes, three top half finishes in the Premier League, and they played great football. I mean, coming after the Tony Poulos era, Poulos was a Bestwicks client. Coming after that, Sparky, who has his own agency, contacts and connections, and I'd rather not get into that. That's a little more sordid. Maybe for another time. It's not really applicable to lower division soccer in the U.S. At least we don't think it is. Hughes's connections, the Kia Jarabshin and others. So, but in any event, Hughes had the ability to get really good players and guys like Shaqiri, Bojan, those sorts of players to play for Stoke. Stoke's technical director at the time was, when the decision was made to sack Mark Hughes, I believe was Matt Cartwright, who, of course, later came to the USL office in Tampa, now has gone to Huddersfield Town with Kevin Nagel, the owner of Huddersfield Town, who is the USL, who is a USL owner, owns Sacramento, and of course, Jake Edwards, the former chief executive or president, I guess the term we use, president of USL. Now, Paul McDonough, the current president of USL, has lots of ties to the Bestwicks agency. In fact, he's a former agent himself, and was named as the technical director of Orlando City, which was a Bestwicks club, who was coach Adrian Heath, Bestwicks client, who many of their players on their USL squad, when they were in USL, Ginge O'Connor, Ant Pulis, guys who went on to be coaches, were Bestwicks clients. And then you had guys like Darren Powell, who were Mark Lowry, Bestwicks clients who became head coaches in USL. And Peter Mellor, great player, Fulham player in the 1970s, ended his career in North America with Edmonton, I believe it was, in the NASL up in Canada, and then was on the coaching staff of the Tampa Bay Mutiny, and was able to go into kind of the player agency business in the Tampa area and make that connection between himself, and then Bestwicks eventually, and USL, which is based in Tampa. That was instrumental. Mellor, great agent, but he represented and he had an involvement with a lot of these guys, and they in turn ended up being kind of the agency for USL. Mellor was the technical director of USL, then Cartwright, and of course now Oliver Weiss, a former agent himself. So I don't think it was that tough a hire as it appears. It looks like a home run swing. They got the Premier League chief to join them, but there's an agency connection, and you have to understand agencies have a lot to do with the development and build in football. A ton. It's not stuff we talk about often. Maybe we don't. We need to talk about it more, but they are very instrumental in all this stuff. So all of this having been said about Bestwicks specifically, I think it's a big hire. I think one of the things that Scholes is going to have to figure out is really the logistics of the league and what those standards are, how you get some synergy between the clubs, because I think this is even a clunky thing in the USL Championship and the USL League One. You have independent clubs that are operating under franchise agreements with the league office that don't necessarily have the connection and the synergies they need. Now, I do think because he's worked at the Premier League, he's worked as a chief executive of a Premier League club, which is now in the Championship, right? They got relegated while he was the chief executive, which you can make the case against him and Cartwright because of that. And I think Cartwright was the technical director along with Jake Edwards, run as the president of Huddersfield when they got relegated from the Championship. And they had recently been in the Premier League. In fact, Huddersfield's been in the Premier League more recently than Stoke City. Clubs get relegated. I don't judge. I don't hold that against chief executives, other than the sacking of Mark Hughes and the hiring of Paul Lambert, who was, to say the least, a manager that I felt lacked any sort of ambition or tactical nous when he was managing Aston Villa. He had done okay. Obviously, had done very well at Norwich. Colchester, he had done well. Was he at Colchester? Yeah, he was at Colchester, wasn't he? Before he was at Norwich. But in terms of Stoke, was a mistake, and then they brought in. They bring in Alan Pardew. Yeah, they did. They were all downgrades from Sparky, and unfortunately, Sparky never regained it. Right, he goes to Bradford City. It's a disaster. He had that Stoke side humming. Really, really bad decision. Fatal managerial decision. I mean, managers are always going to get fired at mid-level clubs in England. That's just the way it is. We're just coming off a few days ago, Will Still, who I had such high hopes for as a manager at Southampton, not even making it until. I guess he made it to November 1st. So it is fraught with danger. You know, you see a guy like Rob Edwards fail at badly at Watford, go to Luton and do a brilliant job. I mean, you see it all the time. Nathan Jones failed at Stoke, brilliant at Luton. I mean, it's just the right fit. So not holding that against Scholes. I think he'll understand the need to create synergies between league and club. This is really important because USL lacks that. And that's one of my big critiques of USL. Huge critique. So if he can come in, and then also maybe he's the right guy with a connection to an agency, the connection to Bestwick's, to help with the player side, not just helping clubs with technical directors and technical help, but more importantly, I think the CBA is going to be really important for the USL First Division. It's going to be extremely important for the Championship, as we're going to continue to talk about in the next few months. But hopefully it's not that many months. Hopefully they get a deal done by December 31st. But I will tell you, as we speak here in early November, I am not optimistic about that. And we're going to revisit that subject soon. But I do believe if you look very closely at the CBA in Major League Soccer, which is, of course, the established first division in the United States on the men's side, and then you compare it to the CBA and what the union has carved out on the women's side in NWSL, the first division, they're even though those are both single entity leagues, very, very different. The unions have gotten different types of concessions, and you could get a really player-friendly CBA compared to what you have. I think the MLS union, players union, is lousy at what they do, quite frankly. And I really have been impressed by what the USL PA was able to accomplish in their first CBA negotiation and how they've handled themselves since. So I think with that union, now that union is not certified, I should mention, to do first division. But maybe they get the certification, and a guy like Scholes is able to work those issues out. And if you have the right CBA with the sort of autonomy and kind of flexibility that players like to see, and people will say, oh, we don't want player power like you have in Europe. Well, you know what? If you want to be a serious football league, there's going to be some player power. There's going to be some agent power. And there's going to be some restrictions on what management and what club owners can do. But of course, club owners are buying in for a lot less money in the USL First Division than they're going to buy in Major League Soccer. So they should be willing to roll with this. And I think Scholes, based on his history, is a guy that can help kind of guide this with the advice of some of these other people we've talked about. And I think Paul McDonough certainly understands that. I think he understands it. Well, you know what? Jake Edwards understood it. McDonough will see. We'll see how this CBA negotiation goes. But I do think it's a great hire. It's a big time hire. And again, first reported by Paul Tenorio of The Athletic before Alex Ashton at Beyond the 90 reported it. We were following up on Tenorio's reporting. Want to make that clear. That they reported it first. We did not break the story. But I think it was an easier hire, is what I'm saying. It was a more logical hire and an easier hire than maybe a lot of people think.